Welcome to Delaney Diamond Presents an Author Chat, where we interview authors about their books, writing process, and personal lives. This show is sponsored by the Delaney Diamond Readers Lounge, an online community of readers where we bond over great books and support programs that promote literacy and book distribution. To join us, visit DelaneyDiamond.com and select the Readers Lounge tab.
Welcome to Delaney Diamond Presents an Author Chat. I'm your host, Delaney Diamond, author of sensual and passionate romance in the contemporary romance and romantic suspense genres. Today, I'm chatting with author Elle Wright about her novel, The Way You Love Me. But before I get started on the novel, I wanted to tell you a little bit about Elle. Elle Wright is the author of edgy, angsty, and sexy contemporary romances. Her stories have a lot of drama, a healthy dose of humor, and sometimes a little scandal. Family is extremely important to her, in real life and in fiction. And she learned a long time ago that you don't have to be blood to be family. She loves reading and writing about families, the good moments, the bad moments, and the OMG, you really did that moments. If you adore big family romances, you will love her catalog. Welcome, Elle.
Thank you for having me. It's great to come. Great to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm excited. And I like reading about family romance and writing family romance as well. So we have that in common.
Oh, yes. I love it.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a good way to really get in depth with the characters, I feel like, because you get all this emotional tension and family dynamics can just be crazy and a lot of fun. So I definitely.
Oh, yeah. It brings a lot of drama.
Yes. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And what I'm going to do is just kind of ask you some general questions initially before we dive into the story. Okay. All right. So first thing I want to know, did you always want to be a writer? And if not, what inspired you to become a writer?
I didn't always want to be a writer, a novelist. I didn't always want to be a novelist. I thought I would be a script writer or a screenplay person. I just assumed I would one day write a Black soap opera. I never thought that I would actually write a book. I mean, I dabbled in, I was creating, this is so crazy just thinking about it. I was creating these big, huge worlds with my Barbie dolls as a kid. And for my age, I don't know how I know how I knew all this stuff because I used to watch the soap operas with my granny and sneak and watch it with my mom, and I just knew that I would write a Black soap opera about a family that was embroiled in all kinds of scandal. And my Barbie dolls reflected that. I didn't have a lot of Black Barbie dolls, but all my Barbie dolls were Black in my mind. So I just knew that I was going to write this Black soap opera. So, I mean, they all had Black names. I mean, names that I would consider people that I knew that were Black. And they were white, but I imagined them as these beautiful Black women and men in these gowns and having this huge story. So I just knew that I would write a soap opera one day. I even dabbled in poetry, but I never thought I would publish any poetry. My mind was just on the soap opera. So much so that when I went to college, I started writing this. I called it a journal, but it was nothing like my life. It was just about this girl's experience at college.
A made-up life.
Yeah, it was just like a made-up life. And so every evening we would go down to the snack bar and people would ask me what happened next in the story. So it was just like a daily soap opera. So I had at least 5 full notebooks of this soap opera.
Wow.
And it wasn't until actually I read Indigo by Beverly Jenkins that it kind of changed my mind a little about actually writing a book. I still wasn't really too keen on it, but it made me fall in love with Black romance. And so I was really into, and she's still today one of my actual favorite author of all time. And Indigo is my favorite book of all time. And I've read so many books. But that book just really changed my life. I always say it changed my life. And then one day I had a dream about this family. It was really me, but it wasn't me. Like in the dream, it was me, but it wasn't me. This family.
The way the dreams are, yeah.
Yeah, this like the family of assassins who escaped to this lair 5 floors underground to protect their family. Wow. And every time I would tell, the first night I dreamt it, I woke up and went back to sleep and fell right back into the dream. And I dreamed about these characters for like an entire week. And I told my brother and sister-in-law about it, and they were all like, that's a book. You need to write that book, girl. So I finally did. That's the first book I ever wrote. And
so it was an assassin story, like
it was a suspense.
thriller? Or?
Yep, it was a suspense thriller.
Okay.
And I published it under a different name back in 2012. And there was a sex scene in the book. And I wouldn't have never considered it a romance because the main couple was already married. But the lady who was beta reading the book said, "Oh my God, you have a way with sex scenes. You should consider writing romance." And by this time I was in love with Black romance because I was loving Beverly Jenkins and everything. And so I was like, oh, I never even thought about it. So I just sat down and the idea came to mind. What would happen if this woman was torn between two brothers? And how would I get the reader to root for the brother that wasn't her boyfriend already?
That sounds pretty messy and dramatic.
Yes. So, and that's where The Forbidden Man was born. And that's the first book I wrote is Elle Wright. And I've been writing romance ever since.
Wow, that's great. What a great story. So it's basically a combination of Beverly Jenkins and that beta reader. Those are the two people that we have to thank for you.
Yes.
Going feet first into romance.
Yes.
Nice. Okay, so your bio mentions that you use a healthy dose of humor in your novels, and I did notice that in the novel that we're going to talk about later tonight. And so what I wanted to ask you, what do you consider your funniest story to date? Is there a story that you've written that you just think, oh wow, I really nailed the humor in this one?
Oh my goodness. So The Way You Love Me, I consider that to be one of the most tame books as far as humor in my catalog. I know I did have some funny moments in it, but it just wasn't a funny type of story. It had a lot of emotional turmoil that Paige was going through with Julius and
oh my God,
Andrew and his mother. So, I like to kind of intersperse the humor between them, or if they're talking to their friends or family. And that's why I made Tina and Connie have such a bigger role in the book. So I thought it was tame compared to the other two Pure Talent books. I guess the funniest book I've written, I would have to say it's probably in my Young in Love series, my latest series. Because I found myself cracking up the whole time I was writing It's Not Me, It's You. And I know there are serious themes in it, but I just could not stop laughing at these characters. And I would say that that's probably my funniest book, but I think a close second is 10 Christmas Shots, because I had to kind of figure out how this woman was going to have these shots with these random guys, and I was just making up stuff and tossing it at the wall. And and I was telling my writing sister, I was like, oh my goodness, I just had this girl have a shot of McDonald's high C orange. I just couldn't. I was just thinking she has to have these shots, and I didn't want them all to be liquor because she's meeting these people in the middle of the day. So like, so I said, okay, well, let's let her go to McDonald's and have a shot of high C orange. Like just things like that. So I thought. I found myself cracking up at that too, but I do tend to laugh at myself when I'm writing, because some of the things that I write, I just crack myself up because it's so outrageous to me. Like in Pure Talent 2, there was a Baby Yoda theme, and I was just like, I might have been tired, so I added in this little Baby Yoda thing. And the editor just loved it. And she was like, oh my goodness, I love Baby Yoda. I'm like, really?
Isn't that funny when sometimes it's the thing that you think, oh, they're going to hate this. And then
right.
Working, right?
I just knew they were going to tell me to take it out. They never did. So, it's things like that. I'm just like, I'm just gonna try it. I just try it and see what happens. And then they like, oh, we love Baby Yoda. I'm like, really?
So let me ask you this. Would you consider It's Not Me, It's You a romantic comedy, or just a romance that has some funny scenes?
I would think it's a romantic comedy. I think it's
Okay.
I think aside from the second book, It's Not Love, It's Business, which had really serious themes in that book. And It's Not Me, It's You had serious themes, but it wasn't as serious as It's Not Love, It's Business. But I would say that It's Not Me, It's You, and It's Not the hookup, It's the chase was really rom-com territory.
Okay. Good to know. I'm making note of that because I'm always looking for romantic comedies, and I find like they're kind of hard to find sometimes because so often nowadays, with the illustrated covers, you think it's a romantic comedy, but it's
Right.
not. Yeah, so that's good. I've definitely made a note of those. And just as an FYI, in the chat, you've got a couple of people talking about your books. Sharon said that she loved The Forbidden Man.
Oh, thank you, Sharon.
And Mitzi said that she loved the holiday novella. So.
Oh, thank you. I love 10 Christmas Shots too. And I still think that one of my best heroes to date is Morgan from The Forbidden Man. I love him still to this day.
Good. All right. So in terms of what you hope readers feel or learn from your books, is there anything in particular you want them to take from your stories once they get to the end?
I think what I strive for is that, life can beat you down, but there's always time for joy. I think that's why I do put humor in my book, and I like to write close-knit families. Because that's a lot of that's a support for for a character or for a person in real life, because you can be having the worst day in the world, but you're with your siblings or your cousins, and they just brighten a day, so like no matter what's going on, there's always a little joy on the other side, and I've learned that in my own life. And so I like to put that in the books. And I do like a little bit of redemption. Like if someone is a villain, except for a few villains that I will not ever redeem.
Some people are just, that's way too dark, way too
far. Yeah. So, I mean, I think everybody deserves a second chance. Everybody deserves a chance to be their best person. And whether that's with your forever bae or it's just learning to love yourself, I think every person deserves that.
Yeah, actually, someone in the chat, Mitzi, just mentioned that just because you're having a bad day doesn't mean that you have a bad life.
Yes.
And even more so, it doesn't mean that you're a bad person. You know,
Yes.
sometimes we get caught up in like looking at one isolated incident and try to judge people and their entirety of their life based on something.
Yes.
Yeah.
And no one should ever judge someone on the worst moment of their life, because it just doesn't allow a person to grow and learn from a mistake. And I think that's the problem with this world in general, is that we just always want to judge people on the worst moment of their life.
Of their life. Yeah, I agree. Okay, let me see what else is in the chat. We've got Cheryl. She said that she is Team Morgan.
Oh, thank you, Cheryl.
So she agrees with you. And let's see, Essie and Tammy agree with family books. They love that strong family connection as well.
Yes.
And I do. I told you too. Yeah, I love that. So
yes.
Okay. Now, I'm assuming that you read a lot, or at least read some, because you know they always say as authors we should be reading regularly. But what I wonder about is whether or not you've always read. Like, were you a big reader when you were a kid, and what kind of books did you read, if so?
Oh yeah. I read more when I was a kid than I have as a writer. Just because I can't read while I'm writing, and it seems like I'm constantly writing. You know, just this summer though, I'm taking a break on both. I just needed some me time. So I've read from the time that I was the earliest time I could remember was reading a Ramona book, Beverly Cleary.
Yeah, Ramona and Beezus, right?
Yes. I love that story. I loved it. And then, you know, my mom was an educator. And she brought me my first book with Black characters. And it was Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. And I had not read Black characters in a book. And while it wasn't taking place in the past, it just did something to me to see that on the page. And from there, I went to, in my Maya Angelou, Their Eyes Were Watching God. Wait, is that Zora Neale? I keep getting them confused.
Yeah, it is Zora Neale Hurston.
Yeah, Zora Neale Hurston. And then I went back to Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. You know, so I was just, you know, I just read the Scholastic Book Fair was like the best thing for me. I felt like it was great. It was on the top where Santa's Secret Shop was in elementary school. So every time they sent home that little booklet of books that we could choose, I was choosing tons of books. But then I kind of went through this phase, and I'm still a true crime junkie, where I just love thrillers, and I still love suspense, domestic suspense and thrillers to this day. So I can sit here and watch ID Channel all day.
You and my sister, because that's all she falls asleep to it.
Yeah. You know? So I mean, I love documentaries. So I just love true crime. I love watching and seeing how the human mind works. And a lot of times you see it in movies, but just to know that this stuff really happens is just kind of interesting to me.
And it's crazy because a lot of times the true crime is wilder and more depraved than you can ever imagine writing in fiction, you know?
Yes.
You just sit there and go, he did what? She did what?
Right.
You know, it's crazy. Yeah.
And then in college, you know, everyone was Toni Morrison, you know, so I was reading Beloved and Sula, Song of Solomon, you know, like things like that. I was still haunted by Beloved. I don't know how I got through that book. It was one of the hardest reads I've ever read.
Yeah.
And the movie was no better. Like I I can't even watch it. There are certain movies you just can't watch again after you see it the first time. That's one of them. That's a book I'll never read again, but I cannot deny her talent.
Yeah.
Just beautiful prose, how she strings together words. I just love her style. But that book,
one and done, right?
Yeah, that was it. But I enjoyed I fell in love with Sula. Like that was a great story. And then you go through your literary fiction phase, and then I just went full on romance after I read Indigo. And then I haven't turned back, but I still read suspense and thrillers and young adults, and I just read a wide variety.
Different genres, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna pivot a little bit, and we're gonna go ahead and start talking about the book. Mm-hmm. And before we do that, before we talk about it, I just want to say that Julius is trash.
Oh gosh.
He's a terrible person. Poor page, and that's it. I'm just gonna say that. But now go ahead and you tell us about The Way You Love Me. Just give us sort of like a quick summary, the character, the plot, for anyone who's listening who may not have read it or just needs a refresher since they haven't read it in a while.
So Julius is one of those characters that I'll never redeem in a book. So it's just never going to happen. Mm-hmm. I introduced Paige in The Way You Hold Me because Sky was her publicist, and that book was about Sky. So I knew I was going to write Paige's story, so I was setting it up to where they were just getting ready to break up in the second Pure Talent book. And so when I got to this book, I wanted it to already be just unequivocally no chance at reconciliation done. But I felt that Julius wouldn't let go. So when I started the book at he had prolonged the divorce and all that stuff, I knew that was the right move to make, because that's what he would do, because he was a punk. So I wanted, because she was such a nice person, and she was Black America's sweetheart, and I wanted to have her become stronger throughout the book. And I just felt like she was in such a vulnerable place that whatever she went through with Julius was bound to leak into her relationship with Andrew. So I wanted to keep that consistent throughout, that even though she loved Andrew, she still had trust issues, not just because of Julius, but because of Andrew's own behavior.
Yeah.
And so
he did drop the ball.
Yeah, he did. And he ghosted her. Mm-hmm. And he ghosted her for selfish reasons. Mm-hmm. And I wanted her to call him on it. I wanted her to actually stop depending on him and saying, you know what, you messed me over. I'm done with you. And I wanted him to beg her to not be done with him. Like, I needed somebody to beg her to not let them go. Mm-hmm. And so Andrew fit the bill because he messed up. Mm-hmm. So that's where I wanted to start the book, with their relationship in like a limbo, and her relationship with Julius over. And then I felt like she will run away. And so I love a good location book. So I sent her away to heal, which is not so different than what people do when they've been through a traumatic experience. So, and he had to go chase her. He had to go after her. And so that's essentially what The Way You Love Me is him realizing that he needed to, excuse my language, shit or get off the pot. Mm-hmm. And he had to go get her. Like, he had to get her, and not just get her, but he had to convince her that he wasn't going to leave. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what the real story was that these two people were friends. There were some feelings there. On his side, definitely. On her side, that she just avoided because she married Julius and she loved Julius. I didn't want to ignore that she actually did love her husband, but there was this underlying current between her and Andrew, and it had always been there. And he just couldn't take it anymore. He couldn't take seeing her with Julius, and that's what made him act the way he acted. So I needed him to man up and chase her.
Get his woman. Yeah. I mean, perfect. And we like to see that too. We like to see the hero go get the heroine.
Yes.
So let me ask you this. Were there any scenes in particular when you were writing the story that I guess you just felt like you really did a good job writing it, whether it was between Paige and Andrew or just anyone else, that you think, you know what, I did a really good job. And when you get through, I'm going to tell you my favorite scene.
Okay. So I loved the scene where he ordered the pizza on the porch. I thought that was like the best scene. I was loving the vision of him standing out on the porch and eating this pizza, and her really wanting the pizza, but she had cooked her greens and everything. So
it doesn't sound nearly as appetizing.
Yes. And she was already mad at him, but he stayed out there. Like, he stayed outside. He did not leave. And
I loved that too. Like, he was determined. Oh, you're not gonna let me in? Fine.
Yeah.
Out here. And someone in the chat said they loved his determination, and I agree.
Yes.
He was not giving up.
Yeah, and that's what I needed him to do. I wanted him to stay. No matter what she told him, I needed him to stay there and not walk away. Mm-hmm. And he didn't walk away. He stayed, and he stayed outside. And she thought he was gone, but he hadn't left. He just ordered a pizza, and she's like, who ordered a pizza? It's him, because he's still here. Like, he's not leaving.
And he just casually walks up.
Yeah.
Excuse me, why are you still here and you're ordering pizza?
Yeah. And I love the scene where he was making the s'mores.
That was the one I was gonna say.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites too. I like
it was because he was so deliberate in his, and I use that to kind of show how Andrew was in life. He was deliberate. Like, he was toasting those marshmallows with precision. You know, like, that is how he does his job. That's how he lives his life. You know, that is him. And it was just a little glimpse at how he deals with it and how they kind of deal with each other. The ice was thawing a little, and they were starting to give each other their confessions again. And, you know, it was a nice little segue from the ice that was in the beginning, when it started raining and she threw the comforter and the pillow at him, you know, like, it was just a nice little segue from that frosty,
yeah. So that was, the s'mores scene was definitely one of my favorites. And then my second favorite was when Julius and Andrew, well, Julius came into the bar or where Andrew was, and he grabbed him by the neck and slapped And yes, I know violence is wrong. Please don't judge me. But I loved it. I loved it because he needed that.
Yeah.
First of all, I felt like Andrew needed to get that pent up anger out, but also Julius just needed somebody to really slam his face.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely
it. To her.
Yeah.
And I always like to see the hero pick up for the heroine. So.
And I wanted him to be violent with Julius too. I felt like it was, because if you read Pure Talent 1, you know that Xavier had an anger problem.
No, I didn't read it, but I did catch the hint where he threw someone into the dessert table.
Yeah, in the middle of his parents' Christmas party. So
no.
he had a little anger problem. He would get clowned about it from his friends. So it was like turnabout, so like
but you talked about me and now look at you.
Right, look at you. Like, yeah. So he had to correct him, like, at least I didn't throw him into a banquet table. And he's like, no, it was a dessert table. Like, it was, but it's okay. You got one. You deserve to get one, So that's that support, like that bond between friends, more like brothers. Because Andrew was X's mentor. And I wrote about it in The Way You Tempt Me, how Andrew had been there for X when he was entering into the agenting field. So it was great to see the roles reversed and X being there for Andrew.
Mm-hmm. Good. Theresa also agrees that Julius needed a beat down. So
oh yeah.
Confirmation. Actually, there's several people in the chat who confirmed that. Yes. He got exactly what he deserved.
He did.
Okay. Okay, so moving right along. Tell me about the characters now. Were there any characters that you just really enjoyed writing or liked writing about the most? Because one of the characters that I personally liked was Andrew's mother. I liked the fact that she was strong and she was funny as well.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so I laughed a couple of times with her scenes when she was talking to her sons and basically telling them, look, I'm grown, stop trying to run my life. And by the way, get some grandbabies.
Right. I love the mothers. I thought they added a whole new, I love Tina and I love Connie. I like
Tina for a different reason, because particularly toward the end when she had that heart-to-heart with Paige.
Yes.
I thought that was really good. But go
ahead. I thought that Connie, I used Connie to kind of show Andrew's soft side, and just how he loves his family. Like, he's just there for his family. He dropped everything to go to his mom when she fell. And he was taking care of her, like going back and forth from LA to Michigan to take care of her. And he would never not do that. Like, that's just the type of person he was. And she didn't want him to do it, but he needed to do that for his mom because she had done so much for him. And I kind of wanted to show that she had worked so hard in her life to raise these 3 boys. And she was just such a joy to write. She reminded me of the women in my family. Nobody in my family reminds me of Tina. So I just kind of made that up on a whim. I was thinking, okay, this lady is a singer. I just started thinking of Diana Ross. And I don't know why.
A little bit diva, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, so I thought of her, or like Aretha Franklin, somebody just really just far out that you just can never reach or attain. But with her daughter, she's a different type of person. And I wanted her to kind of show Paige that she really did love the person that she was, and she didn't want her to change, She just didn't know how to be a mom like that, and it took her that, like you said, that talk, that heart to heart at the end to kind of show some vulnerability with Paige and let her know that she made a mistake. Like, she should have never left her, what was it, her 4th husband?
Third. Her 3rd husband, I think.
Yeah, one of the 3rd or 4th. She should have never left them because she messed up, and she didn't want Paige to make that same mistake. But she wanted her to go after what she wanted, and she wanted her to fix her hair and make sure that she, look appropriate.
Always gotta look your best.
Right, you always have to look your best. And then the whole scene with the grandkids at the end, like, I love writing those characters, and I love writing Sky And I had gotten to know Sky in the first 2 books very well, but I just like how she is as a publicist. And I like her relationship with Andrew, where she just tell him that he was wrong, and he was like, they were almost like brother and sister, how combative they were with each other at times, but you could tell that they still cared about each other. So I really like that relationship, and I love how she was there for Paige. Like she would be willing to do whatever it took to protect Paige. And that's how most of her tribe was.
Yeah, I agree. I was just thinking that when you said that, she really had a lot of good people in her corner,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but she
including
had to realize that. She had to
yeah.
realize that herself, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So did you find that you struggled with any parts of the story when you were writing?
Oh
Or
yeah.
did
I
yeah?
struggled. I struggled with I if you ask anybody that's close to me, I am always trying to kill people off. So I wanted to kill somebody in this book, and I could not find. I wanted to kill Julius, but I felt like his comeuppance would be better if he was alive. You know, and had to
Mm-hmm.
suffer through a trial and all that stuff. And then I was like, well, let me kill one of the parents. And then I'm like, no, because I just really love Connie and Tina. So I I struggled with not killing somebody off, because I kind of felt when I first started writing the book that somebody needed to die. But I
Mm.
tend to feel that way on most books. Um,
Somebody needs to die.
somebody needed to die. So that is typically where my mind goes, because like I said, I'm an IDTV junkie.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's hard for me to kind of reel that in every book, like every single book. It's hard for me to reel that urge in to kind of turn it into a suspense type of book. So that's the hardest thing that I struggled with this book. And not only that, but just kind of trying to figure out the right amount of tension between them. Yeah, I didn't want it to get too bad, but I wanted it to be real. Like he really hurt her when he ghosted her. And I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want it to be too easy for them. You know, like I didn't want it to be so easy for him to just jump back in and be like, hey, I'm here. So I wanted to kind of show that thread, like that, those second thoughts all through the book. So that was kind of hard. Because I was enjoying their story. I was enjoying the Scrabble and the puzzles, and just them being at the apple orchard. I was enjoying their moments, the fun and games. And I just still felt it was kind of hard to add in that tension that I felt was needed, not only between them, but because there were outside forces too against them.
I think one good thing you did too was not just show her hesitation, but his, because
Yes.
of his concerns regarding whether or not am I just a rebound?
Right.
She was married to this guy. It's only been a couple of months,
Mm-hmm.
yada yada yada. So I thought that that was actually another layer that really
Yeah.
worked in the story.
And he knew her, and he knew that she wouldn't have married him if she didn't love him.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just kind of like he needed to hear her say she wasn't in love with him. And
Mm-hmm.
even when she said it, he's still in the back of his mind. And he had his brother in his ear, like, oh, be careful, his mom in his ear. And then he had his own internal turmoil where that came from, So I needed that tension on both of their parts to just kind of be threaded through the book. So I had to add in little, and that was kind of hard because I was just wanted to be like, I was enjoying the romance a lot in that
Mm-hmm.
book. So,
So let me, and this is gonna be the last question because we're almost out of time. So we're
mm-hmm,
gonna wrap it up in a little bit. But I wanted to ask you about themes in the novel
mm-hmm,
because after I read the story, I actually looked at the book again and I saw it in the acknowledgments. You had something like, if you've been hurt before, the struggle that people go through after they've been hurt, basically opening up themselves again, right?
Yes.
And so I was kind of curious to know, was that the theme, or did you have other themes that you wanted to convey in the story?
That was the main thing.
Okay.
Because it's really Paige's journey to come back from being so devastated, like just brought to a low point in her life because she fell in love with this guy who was just an asshole. Like he was like dastardly, you know.
Right. They bring that word out for him. You are
Yeah,
right. He was dastardly.
He was horrible. He was horrible to her. He was just a horrible person. Like he tried to take her house. I mean, he just was just not a
Oh
nice.
my God! When he tried to take the house, I could not believe the audacity of this.
Yes, he was horrible.
He really was.
And that notion that you just kind of want to hide away, but you really can't hide from your life forever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you have to move on, but it's hard. It's hard to move on. Like when she was at the beach, the lake house, she was eating up a storm and she realized, oh my God, I'm eating all this ice cream and stuff. You know, maybe I should cook these greens. And then here come Andrew with the pizza. You know, so it's like I don't know about you all, but when I'm sad, I want to eat, you know.
Yeah, I'm an emotional eater,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah. So it's kind of like she wanted to run away. Like he had broke her down so much that she wanted to run away. Like he took away her safe haven by wanting to get the house. You know, like it was just horrible. It was a horrible experience. So I wanted that thread, like, but you can recover from that. Like you can get to a point where you are ready to love someone again. And everybody is not the same. Every man is not the same. He's not going to treat you, every man is not going to treat you as bad as Julius, you know. But it takes a leap of faith to jump out there again.
Mm-hmm. And it's not easy, that's for sure.
It's definitely not easy. It's very hard.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's going to be it for the questions. Before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you, do you have anything else coming up soon that you want to tell us about?
I'm gonna be finishing Young in Love. Yeah, there's 8 siblings, so it's a little a long series, but it's one of my funnest series to write. So I am gonna be working on that for the next year and a half, and trying to finish it off. And then I have some I think I want to kind of delve back into suspense thrillers and maybe even a young adult or a woman's fiction. So those are things I'm planning for 2023.
And will those be under the Elle Wright name or under your pseudonym?
It'll be under Elle Wright. Elle Wright is the pseudonym. The first book I published just with my regular initials, L.R. Wright.
Okay.
But Elle.
But you're keeping under everything under Elle.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna keep everything under Elle Wright, like ELLE Wright.
Okay. And where can readers find you and connect with you online? What's your
I
website?
am mostly on Facebook. I forget about Instagram every day. If you send me an inbox and I don't read it for days, it's really I would love to say it's not my fault, but it is because I don't click on the app. And when I go on Twitter, I'm going on Twitter for politics and
Me
news.
too. And
so
news.
I'm not really seeing like the book stuff. Like I'm not in seeing book Twitter. So but you can find me on Facebook. I'll be on Facebook. And I do have a private group called Elle's Cocktail Lounge. That if you're a fan and you want to join, just let me know. I'll give Delaney the links. But that's pretty much it. My family says I spend a lot of time on the phone, and I'm really trying to lessen that phone time or computer time for this next several months before I kick back into high gear for the rest of the Young in Love series.
Okay. All right, well, good. What's your website address? Did you say that?
Oh, it's www.ellwright.com. It's ELLEWRIGHT.com.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you to everyone listening, and an extra special thank you to our guest, Elle Wright. Make sure you grab a copy of her novel, The Way You Love Me, for your enjoyment.
Yes.
And until next time, laugh often, love hard, and read a lot. Thanks, everybody.